I was standing in the bank manager's office, trembling, watching him slide a foreclosure notice across his mahogany desk. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. "Mr. Rodriguez," he said, his voice cold and mechanical, "we've given you enough time. The property will be seized in 30 days. I looked at my wife through the glass window of his office. She was crying, holding our 6-year-old daughter. In that moment, I realized something that shattered everything I thought I knew about money. The bank wasn't my friend. They never were. They had been using me, feeding off me, profiting from my ignorance for 15 years. And I had smiled and thanked them every single time. But here's what nobody tells you. Here's the truth that made my blood run cold that day. Every dollar I had saved, every cent I had deposited into what I thought was my safety net, had been working against me. While I slept peacefully thinking my money was secure, the bank was lending it out at 15, 18, sometimes 20% interest. And what were they giving me back? Less than 1%. I was handing them golden eggs, and they were tossing me back the shells, laughing all the way to their executive bonuses. Listen, if you're watching this right now, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone you love, someone you care about, someone who's still trapped in the same cycle I was. And subscribe to this channel because what I'm about to tell you could change your entire financial future. But you need to stay with me until the very end of this video, because I'm going to reveal exactly what led to that devastating moment in the bank manager's office, and more importantly, how I turned it all around. The story gets intense, it gets raw, but I promise you, it will make your day. It might even save your life. So let me take you back. Let me show you how I got there. I grew up believing in the system. My father worked 43 years for the same company. Every Friday, he'd come home, tired but proud, waving his paycheck like it was a trophy. "This is security," he'd tell me. "Get a good education, get a stable job, save your money in the bank, and you'll be fine." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my hero. So I did exactly what he said. I studied hard, got decent grades, landed a corporate job, and started saving religiously. Every month, like clockwork, I'd transfer money into my savings account. I felt responsible. I felt smart. I felt like I was winning. But I wasn't winning. I was being played. See, nobody taught me the language of money. Nobody told me that money has its own vocabulary, its own rules, its own game. While I was speaking the language of salary, paychecks, and savings accounts, the wealthy were speaking an entirely different language. They were talking about assets, dividends, cash flow, leverage, compound interest, and passive income. And because I didn't understand their language, I couldn't play their game. I was a tourist in a foreign country, smiling and nodding while everyone around me was making deals I couldn't even comprehend. The rich don't save money. Let that sink in for a moment. They don't hoard cash in bank accounts earning pathetic interest rates. They make money work for them. They buy assets that generate more money, then reinvest that money into more assets, creating this beautiful cycle where their wealth grows exponentially while they sleep, while they vacation, while they live. Meanwhile, I was trading my time for money, hour by hour, year by year, believing that was the only way. Time. That's the thing they don't tell you about. You have 24 hours in a day. 8 hours for work. 8 hours for sleep. That leaves 8 hours. 8 precious hours of freedom. Most people use those hours to collapse on the couch, scroll through their phones, watch television, numb themselves from the exhaustion of selling their time. And I'm not judging that. I did it too. I was tired. I deserved rest, right? But here's what the wealthy do with those 8 hours. They build. They create. They invest. They start side businesses. They learn new skills. They network. They read. They strategize. They're not necessarily smarter than you or me. They're just more intentional. They understand that freedom isn't free. It costs sacrifice. It costs courage. It costs those 8 hours you thought were yours to waste. I remember the exact moment this hit me. I was sitting in my cubicle, 3 months before that terrible day in the bank manager's office. My boss walked by and mentioned, almost casually, that my position might be restructured next quarter. Restructured. That's corporate speak for you might lose your job. My heart dropped into my stomach. Because in that instant, I realized how fragile my so-called security was. My entire life, my family's survival, my daughter's future, all of it depended on one company's decision, one boss's mood, one economic shift I had no control over. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, doing math in my head. If I lost my job, we had maybe 3 months of savings before everything collapsed. 3 months. 15 years of working, of saving, of doing everything right, and I was 3 months away from disaster. That's when the anger started bubbling up. That's when I started questioning everything. Why did nobody teach me about money in school? Why did I spend 12 years learning algebra I'd never use, but not a single class on taxes, investing, building wealth, or financial freedom? Why was I trained to be an obedient employee instead of an independent thinker? And suddenly it clicked. The system doesn't want you to be financially free. It wants you dependent, scared, obedient, and productive. It wants you showing up every day, trading your life for a paycheck, paying your taxes, buying things you don't need with money you don't have, staying trapped in the cycle. They call it the rat race for a reason. You run and run and run, faster and faster, and you never actually get anywhere. You get a raise, but your expenses increase. You get promoted, but now you work longer hours. You finally pay off one debt, but 3 more appear. It's designed that way. It's not a bug in the system. It's a feature. But here's where my story takes a darker turn. Remember that house I mentioned? The one the bank was foreclosing on? Let me tell you about that house. It was supposed to be my dream. My achievement. My proof that I had made it. I bought it 7 years before that terrible meeting, took out a 30-year mortgage, felt like a king signing those papers. Congratulations, everyone said. You're a homeowner now. I believed I had just made the smartest investment of my life. But I hadn't bought an asset. I had bought a liability. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. My house payment was draining me every month. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, the mortgage interest. Money flowing out, and nothing flowing back in. I was tied to that location, unable to move for better opportunities, unable to take risks, anchored to that mortgage like a prisoner to a ball and chain. And I called it success. I called it the American dream. The wealthy buy rental properties that produce cash flow. They buy businesses that generate income. They buy investments that pay dividends. They own things that make money while they sleep. I owned a house that slowly consumed everything I earned. And then the economy shifted. My company downsized. My secure job evaporated. And suddenly, those mortgage payments became impossible. I tried everything. I worked 2 jobs. My wife took night shifts. We sold our car, our furniture, our dignity piece by piece. But it wasn't enough. The bank didn't care about our story. They didn't care that I was trying. They wanted their money, and when I couldn't give it to them, they took my house. That day in the manager's office, when he slid that foreclosure notice across his desk, something broke inside me. But something else awakened. I walked out of that bank not just defeated, but furious. Furious at the system. Furious at my ignorance. But mostly furious at myself for believing the lie. So I made a decision. Right there, standing in that parking lot with my crying wife and confused daughter, I decided I would never be that powerless again. I would learn the language of money. I would figure out how the game really works. I would become the player instead of the played. And that's exactly what I did. I devoured books on investing, real estate, business, and wealth building. Not the feel-good garbage that makes you think positive thoughts will manifest money. The real stuff. The boring spreadsheets. The tax strategies. The cash flow analysis. The compound interest calculations. I learned about good debt versus bad debt. I discovered that the wealthy use other people's money to build their empires while taking calculated risks. I understood that debt isn't evil. Debt for a depreciating car or consumable items, that's bad debt. But debt to buy a rental property that generates more income than the mortgage payment? That's good debt. That's leverage. That's how you multiply your wealth. I started small. With money I scraped together from 3 side hustles, working those 8 free hours like my life depended on it, because it did, I bought my first small rental property. It was terrifying. Every fear I'd ever been taught about risk screamed at me to stop. But I pushed through. That first property generated $500 a month in positive cash flow after all expenses. $500 that came in whether I worked or not. Whether I was sick or healthy. Whether the economy was booming or crashing. That was my first taste of freedom. And I wanted more. 5 years later, I own 6 rental properties. I built 2 online businesses that generate passive income. I've invested in dividend-paying stocks and index funds. My money works harder than I ever did in that cubicle. And here's the beautiful part. When I wake up every morning, I wake up free. Not rich, not yet, but free. Free from the fear of losing a job. Free from the anxiety of being one emergency away from bankruptcy. Free to make choices based on what I want, not what I can afford. But let me be clear about something. This isn't a rags to riches story where I'm now a millionaire living on a yacht. I'm not selling you a course or a system or some secret formula. I'm telling you the truth that nobody wanted me to know. The truth that could have saved me from that humiliating day in the bank manager's office if someone had just told me earlier. Security is a myth. That stable job, that steady paycheck, that false sense of safety, it's all temporary. It's all dependent on systems you can't control. Real security comes from owning assets that generate income regardless of what happens in the economy, regardless of who's president, regardless of whether your boss likes you or not. Freedom isn't about being rich. It's about being educated. It's about understanding how money works so you can make it work for you instead of constantly chasing it. It's about building multiple streams of income so that if one dries up, you don't drown. It's about thinking like an entrepreneur instead of an employee, even if you still have a day job. Your job is your foundation, but your investments and businesses are your trampoline to something better. The excuses you're making right now, I made them too. I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't know how. It's too risky. What if I fail? Those excuses kept me poor and scared for 15 years. And they'll keep you exactly where you are if you let them. The difference between the life you're living and the life you want is simple. It's education, courage, and action. You're watching this video right now, which means you're already ahead of where I was. You're seeking knowledge. You're questioning the system. You're ready to learn a different way. So don't stop here. Subscribe to this channel for more content that will actually change your financial future. Not hype. Not fantasy. Real strategies, real stories, real education. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's still trapped in the cycle, still believing the lies, still thinking their paycheck will save them. It won't. But education will. Action will. Assets will. The system is designed to keep you running on that hamster wheel forever. The only way off is to stop running and start building. Stop trading time for money and start creating money that works independent of your time. Stop fearing risk and start taking calculated, educated risks that move you forward. That moment in the bank manager's office was the worst day of my life. But it was also the day I woke up. The day I stopped being a victim and became a student. The day I decided that my daughter would never watch her father lose everything because he didn't understand how money works. So what about you? Will you stay in the rat race, running faster and faster, hoping it eventually leads somewhere? Or will you step off, learn the real rules of money, and build something that actually gives you freedom? The choice is yours. But make it now, because time is the one resource you can never get back. And the system is counting on you to stay asleep, stay scared, and stay broke. Don't give them that satisfaction. Wake up. Learn. Build. And set yourself free.